Grab your favorite alcoholic or non alcoholic beverage, drink responsibly, do not drink and drive, and join us for the latest episode of Why Complain When You Can Whine. Everything in this podcast is purely for entertainment and psychoeducational purposes only. Welcome to Why Complain When You Can Whine, making sense of the senseless, attempting to make sense of join us.
Yeah.
As we attempt to make sense of toxic nonsense while drinking wine or whatever beverage of your choice. I am Dr. Jodi Larman, and today I have a Secco Mango. It's a mangosini. I'm not sure which one, how to pronounce it, but it's from Trader Joe's, and it's like a mimosa with prosecco and mango instead of orange juice and
That looks delish. That's
similar.
a good Sunday drink.
And it says wine specialty, and it doesn't have that much alcohol in it.
No,
So that's why it's good for, and this is my little pretty little glass. Like,
beautiful.
and my shirt says rise and wine.
Oh, I love that.
Rise and
Fries and wine. I love that. That's a
wine.
great shirt, Jokes. That's
My
awesome.
sister and my niece gave it to me.
Oh, that's lovely. Well, my name is Brianne Bri. I am a licensed registered therapist up in British Columbia, Canada, and I am drinking coffee because it's Sunday.
Okay.
And I need my second one of the day. So no, I drank last night at tequila. I was at a friend's birthday, so no booze for me today.
Cheers.
Cheers. So,
So
Dr. Larman, what are we talking about today?
we posted our last video
Hmm.
all about the if we can make sense of this toxic nonsense, because
How ironic that this is your podcast,
huh?
Making Sense of Toxic. It's how ironic that this is the name
Yeah.
of your podcast, Making Sense of Toxic Nonsense. Yet the US election just happened, and it's the perfect description.
It's like this shitstorm of toxic nonsense. Like
Hmm.
I don't having a PhD in any topic, any subject, I mean, makes you an expert in that subject, supposedly. By the time you get your PhD, you're supposed to be an expert, which means I'm supposed to be an expert in human behavior. And
Hmm.
up until 2016, I thought I was. And then I questioned and I thought, okay, maybe this is just like an anomaly. Maybe Mercury retrograde went wild or something, and
Hmm.
things will normalize. I cannot, for the life of me, figure this shit out. I was talking to my family yesterday and I'm like, he's not even charismatic. Usually cult leaders have something.
Hmm.
They have either charisma, je ne sais quoi,
Hmm.
whatever,
Hmm.
articulate,
Hmm.
attractive potentially in some
Hmm.
form. He has
Hmm.
none of that. He's a giant self-tanned orange Cheeto that wears a diaper and can't put a sentence together.
Hmm. But he had a reality TV show and he's well known because he has celebrity status prior to getting in. And that's why,
But
honestly, there was an
staying,
attraction there.
staying
No, not,
and
no,
repeating,
no.
like
Yeah. And it was interesting. I was talking to somebody about, so that's kind of, we're just going to continue on and talk about some of the different issues that I
so
think economies and how we're different. And he also spoke to our Prime Minister Trudeau recently, as well as Mexico, and regarding the tariff thing. But before we move on to that, um, why is Trump so attractive? Like, what is it about him, and why are people so drawn to him? And again, we're going back to and I have to be careful with my choice of words because I don't want to be so insulting to a demographic of people. But here's the deal. The people who are super uneducated, who
yes.
don't who really not only lack academia but lack common sense and come from more rural areas where they didn't have access to education and I guess easily influenced, easily brainwashed, easily are the ones who are voting for Trump. And he is specifically going after that demographic. And that demographic is a big part of the US. It's not a
Oh
small
yeah.
part, it's a
Oh
big
yeah.
part. And that's sad when you think about the US in comparison to every other country around the world. Again, it comes down to education and not being educated. Just they're not educated.
No.
Like again, oh, we got to put fire out with fire. Like there's just and some of them they're misspelling stuff all over there, and it makes me sad to say and to insult people or to say things in regards to, is it your fault that you don't have the education? No, you're probably born into that, or there's poverty, or you just don't have access to what others have access to based on social status or and money and financing and finances or whatever. But he deliberately went for that demographic.
And they
And he
ate it up.
speaks to that demographic and they like him because he's so out there and he uses language that they can understand. So again, Kamala, Biden, Obama, and God help me, even Bush, who was dumber than a fucking sack of hammers. And he had a shoe thrown at him because sometimes we were just sitting here going, "Oh, how is this guy the president?" Yeah. But God, we thought he was dumb, and then now you've got Trump.
Well, if you go to places like Florida, Kentucky, Tennessee, their
Mhm.
news, their programming is all like brainwashing. It's all propaganda. It's all the Dems are bad, the Dems are bad, the Dems are
Mhm.
bad. We
Well,
are
and then the
good.
religious and the church and state being mixed into that
Yeah,
brainwashing, brainwashing,
constantly.
brainwashing.
And
Hmm.
so if you don't have your own wherewithal to say, I want to get an both opinion
Hmm.
or I want to try to find an unbiased opinion,
Hmm.
they don't. They just take what that is. There's been so many videos of people asking, do you
Hmm.
know what critical race theory even is?
Hmm. Yeah.
No, I
No,
don't.
they don't. But this is
And they
again,
don't want to
tariffs,
know.
they don't know. They don't want it. They only, this is again, at the end of our last podcast, we said people will only believe what they want to believe. Okay. So you're not going to get, it doesn't matter how much sense and rationale you're making and obvious points that you're making. They're just not going to believe what they don't want to believe. But again, how much is it? This person made this comment, and I thought this is just so true. Trump can't speak eloquently. He's got no,
Put a
he's so
sentence together.
uneducated. He's literally, his literacy skills are so poor, and people that vote for him have poor literacy skills. So when you're listening to Kamala speak, or anybody that has any sense of political rhetoric or a political speech and education behind them, how much of that demographic really understands what they're saying?
No, they
Probably
say they're
not.
elitist. They call them
Well,
elitist
but
because
because they don't understand
yes,
what they're saying due to the fact that they don't have the education, they just don't understand. So many of them are actually illiterate. Where Trump doing this, do a microphone, they know what that means.
yeah.
And that's sad. When you think
Well,
about it, it's sad, but it's just scary.
what's
Oh.
really what I don't understand is okay, I understand the people who his demographic, and if you look at this the exit polls, were uneducated, no high school diploma, or high school diploma, no college, because of
Yeah.
course they feel college indoctrinates you with liberal mindset because it teaches you how to think and critically reason and look at both sides, which
And
is
where do you, oh, okay. And where do
that's
you
the
think that comes
enemy.
from? It's the enemy, but it's because of fear and fear
Yes.
of being
It's,
ignorant and not understanding. So they have to come up with a reason. Again, this
yeah,
is common narcissistic deflection. Low
but
self-esteem, low self-worth, low self-everything. So we have to make,
value,
well, then
yeah.
that's just going to make us liberal. It's going to make us, we don't want to. We want to keep things really simple and not have to think for ourselves or critically think or think outside of the box. And the fear around all of that. And what
And
does that mean for change?
well, like for example, when Kamala said she and Walls have guns, but Republicans were like, what do you mean you guys have guns? Oh my God, how can you really have guns when you want to take everybody's guns away? Now you're being hypocritical. And it's like, okay, no one ever talked about taking guns away. A lot of Democrats, believe it or not, I have a gun. Not believe it or not, but a lot of
That's not
Democrats,
the
believe it
point
or
they were
not.
making, but this is
But
again them
yeah,
twisting the
what
narrative
they're
to
looking
fit.
at is wait a minute. I thought the Democrats were coming door to door to take our guns. They literally believe that because I have talked to people
I
at
know.
the prison who literally thought that. And it's like they're not doing that. So anything else that they hear that doesn't fit the narrative, they cannot even.
No.
comprehend. But this is what I don't understand. This is what someone in Congress said, that Congress, he has created a divide within the GOP, as some lawmakers raise concern about potential overreach, but many more argue it's time for the party to get on board with the Trump agenda. Whatever this is, we need to embrace it, all of it, every single word. Representative Troy Nehls, of a Republican from Texas, told reporters last week, if Donald Trump says jump 3 feet high and scratch your head, we'll all jump 3 feet high and scratch our heads. Why? 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 I
Mm.
can't understand that. You are grown ass adults who apparently, a lot of Congress people were attorneys before they were in government. They've been around, they have degrees, a lot of them, not all of them. We know which ones: Marjorie Taylor Greene,
Oh gosh.
Boebert. But we won't, but why must you? Where is this lockstep coming from? That's the really, really, really terrifying thing. To believe someone is one thing, like in a cult. But when you do get the rest of the world or the rest of the United States that can stop him,
Hmm.
but they're telling everybody to get in line, toe that line, lockstep, jump and scratch your heads. Where does this man, what is this power? Where is this? What does he have on people?
I don't, well, again, he's speaking only to a certain demographic and to the
He's
rest of the
got the
world that is more
government.
liberal in thinking. Like, again, I just watched an episode of Law and Order. Love that show. Love Criminal Minds. Love all that stuff.
Mhm.
And it's an episode from quite a while ago, but again, it was a hate crime. And in the episode, I'm listening as I'm doing stuff around the house, and they're saying it's like people have free reign to say whatever they want and say what they're thinking.
Yes.
And we're going back, and I'm like, oh my God. And the election just happened, and this is exactly what's happening in the US. The amount of hate being spewed toward like racial hate and oh, get back in the field. Like I can't even again, we're going way back in time here. We're going backwards. We're going backwards,
And
not forwards.
in California, I read this
Mm,
again. This is the mindset of a lot of Trump voters.
hmm.
Farmers in California right now were his biggest supporters. The farmers in
Hmm.
California voted for Trump, but he said he was going to massive deportations, right? Mass deportation. And who works in our fields? I
Exactly.
good. I
Immigrants.
don't know the statistics, probably 90% are undocumented. Maybe it's less.
Mhm.
So now the farmers in California, I kid you not, are saying, oh, well, we don't think he means our undocumented. We think he means criminals that he's going after.
Oh, fuck.
Undocumented in
Again,
his
not
mind
getting all the facts.
is criminal. Yeah. So now the farmers in California are wondering what the hell they're going to do when, if and when all their workers are gone. It's
Hmm.
going to increase prices because they're not going to be able to pick the fruit and it's going to rot. So, but
Hmm.
they all voted for him saying, oh, but he didn't mean us.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yes, he
Well, on
does.
the tariffs, I mean, honestly, like our country is the most rich in oil and all natural resources, Canada, right?
Yeah.
Like all of the oil, petroleum, everything. You go down to Mexico, all of the fruit, vegetables, everything, and they're going to tariff everything. Everything's going to get really expensive.
And who's going to pay for it? Not Mexico or
Hmm.
Canada. Because even
No.
if Mexico or Canada did have to pay, still going to come out on our end.
Of course it is. Yeah, of course it is.
We.
It's ridiculous. And that's just it. And so I think it was Doug Ford, and he's a political figure in Ontario, said, after hearing Mr. President-elect Trump, like again, and Trudeau spoke to saying that he had a discussion with Trump and he remained, and as much as I can't stand our prime minister, I can't, he's got to go. And he is liberal. But he just doesn't know what he's doing. It's not so much like again the beliefs and uh or his political stance and what liberals stand for versus conservatives. And like I said before, in Canada, our conservative party is very different than the US conservatives. But basically, Ford had said, it felt like we got, you know, kind of stabbed in the back or our hearts ripped out by a good friend, betrayed by a good friend, because we've always eh, had, like the US, like we've just good rapport, right? Like we're not an enemy, we're an ally. We've always been an ally, and you're an ally to us, and we're your northern neighbor. Like it's always had, we've always had a good rapport with the US. But with this tariff thing that Trump's going to introduce, right? It's offensive.
For everybody.
It's really, really, really offensive.
Trump wants to make the United States the Russia of the world. He wants to make us he wants a mega army,
Hmm.
a proactive, assertive, offensive mega army instead of just, everybody's
It's
got a
scary. And then
military.
here's the deal.
Yeah.
You speak out against Putin, you go missing.
You go out a window missing.
Yeah, you go to Windows and
If
you
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 are in
you
the
go missing.
medical profession in a hospital, unless
Yeah.
their hospital is just wall-to-wall windows that you cannot avoid, how many people have gone out of the
Wow.
window?
There was that famous doctor who was the doping doctor of Russia who was doping all of their athletes and Tour de France guys and whatever. And he came out in a documentary and then had to come to the US to hide.
Yeah.
He knew he had a hit out on him for sure. Putin was like gonna out him big time or
Well,
off him big time.
it's funny how the method of suicide, I hate to say this, and I don't mean this I know these are not suicides, but the favorite method of suicide in Russia is jumping out a window
Mm,
because that's how everybody seems to die
hmm. I know.
mysteriously is out a
Mysteriously, I
window.
know. I know. I know.
So it is getting like that here. It's really scary. And another thing, okay, this is my theory of a lot of Trump voters. They're not bad people, or they're just people who don't think, right? Because there
Yeah,
are some who their
exactly. Yeah,
morals or
100%.
values and they're missing morals, values, they have no moral compass. But
Mm-mm.
there's a group of people that I think it's one of these where I don't break the law. I drive the speed limit. Oh, wait, everybody's driving 70. I'm going to drive 70. Everybody's driving 80. I'm going to drive 80. But I don't break the law. So I would never steal. Oh, look they marked this down from 1,000 to 10 cents. It's an error. I'm not going to take any. But everybody else is taking, I'm going to take. It's just
Yeah.
it starts out small. I'm going to now take,
It's
20 of them. Yeah.
the sheep mentality, right?
Yeah. And then
Hmm.
it's like, okay, everybody's doing this, I'm doing this. And before you know it, it's like, wait, everybody's saying the N-word? I would never say it, but everybody else is saying it. So I guess it's fine.
Yeah. Again, no, almost like lack of sense of self, really, and values
Yes.
and morals, of
Yeah.
knowing right from wrong, regardless of whether everybody else is doing it or not. Is it right
Yeah.
or wrong? Why do you think we have social construct laws and things to like, you
But
know,
in their mind, the social construct has now changed. So I'm going to change. And
yeah.
then it changes. So I'm going to change. And before you know it, I'm doing a bunch of things that I don't even know that they're bad anymore because everybody's doing them. Or everybody in
120%.
what I feel
Right,
is my cohort is doing.
right,
So when
right.
it's pointed out, but you do realize that it's still wrong.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. It's not because everybody's doing it. So how can it be wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And we get to say, I don't like you, you stupid Canadian bitch,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody's doing it. So it's
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
because
I
everybody else is doing
personally,
it.
yeah, it's not okay. And I'm
No.
sorry, that was not intended.
No, 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 no. Oh gosh, I'm not offended, not at all. Are you kidding me? This is
But
totally
like when I saw
fine.
that live right after the election where the guy told the black lady to shut up, black bitch, and it was like, why in what world? But then again, you have this congressman saying, "Hey, we gotta do whatever he says and fall in line." So that's part of falling in line. We're allowed to say, "Shut up, black bitch."
That's horrible. It's horrible.
Why?
And even though other people are doing it, how again, where is your own
Their
sense
moral
of
compass.
moral compass of knowing that's just so much hate? What is going on in your life that you're full of so much hate? There's just, again, this comes down to and what Trump supports, and all these people that are still so full of fear and so full of hate. And it just is so sad. Like they've learned nothing.
It's
So,
again, he wants to get rid of the Department of Education.
mm,
Why?
yeah,
Why?
exactly. Good point,
You
Jody. Why?
know, is
Yeah.
and he wants to turn it over to the states, which would be fine for California. Fine for, I think one blue state is in the bottom of education. I think it's New Mexico. I'm not 100%, but turn it over to the states. You think Mississippi, Oklahoma is number 49 out of 50. You think they have enough money in their state to fund? They're putting the freaking Bible in school now. And their state vegetable is a watermelon. I think I said this on the
Yeah,
last.
you didn't. Yeah. This
So,
is,
yeah,
it scares me.
turn it
Again,
over to the states to keep the dumb ones
hmm dumb one.
voting for him.
Voting for him, yeah. Well, this is just again when you mix church and state. I mean, you're imposing your faith and expecting everybody else to follow it. And what has been the biggest war, um, what's the word I'm looking for?
Catalyst.
Uh, yeah, in the world is religion, religious battles.
Yeah.
That's the pinnacle of war. So now you're gonna again you're trying to convert the world. First it's a state, then it's a country, and then the world into one form of belief system. It's just so
That's what
unbelievably wrong.
radical Islam.
That is
Radical
radical. Well,
Islam
that's
wants
radicalism
to
in
do.
all ways. But now,
Yeah.
well, think about it. A Roe v. Wade being overturned, like it's so radical. All of it is extremely radical. So look at that side of radicalism versus the way that they're attacking the liberal mindset of, oh, you're so radical and you're left wing, transgender, trans this, the people don't have any more, this gender fluidity thing. They think that it's so radical in that thinking. But a belief system. This is again where we have to come back to a point of being in the middle
Yeah.
and not so radical on either side, because I don't agree with the left going too far either. Well, as I said in my
No, no.
there's people identifying
Oh,
as animals now and having like it's just there. This is what social construct is for. There is a limit. You can't just say what you want to be or an idea. You just can't do that. There has to be limits. And so again, we need to pull it back to being in the middle somewhere. But when it comes to religion and faith, it's a very individual, very personal thing. And your belief system, you want to believe it, great, go ahead, but you cannot force that upon anyone. Bibles in school? Fuck.
no, because you know what
No.
they're doing? And it's not just the Bible,
No, I know.
because Judaism has the Old Testament, and all the other religions that look at the Bible, they incorporate the Old Testament in their
Hmm.
way, but they're
Hmm.
not using the Old Testament, which I
No,
wouldn't want them to do anyways, but they're using the evangelical Christian Bible, which is
I know.
not Catholic, it's not Muslim, it is not
No, it's evangelical Christian, which is there's so much
not
hypocrisy.
Methodist, it's not Lutheran. It's, yeah, it's like they want it to be not just church,
No,
but
it's
their church, which is
well,
exactly why the United States was founded.
hmm
Separation of church and state. They left the King of England
hmm
because of religious persecution and oppression and all of that,
yes,
to come
exactly.
here to have freedom. But
Yep.
now we're trying to then impose, which if
Yeah,
they
you're
want,
taking people's freedoms away about a certain form of
yeah,
religion. So again,
it's a constitution.
religion, yeah, I get
Sorry, they're
constitution.
so about the Constitution.
I
But
know.
the Constitution states a separation of church and state. Well,
Yeah,
how
I
did
see.
that get
You're not
lost?
you're not following, say again, hypocritical, not following Constitution, not following the rules that they made in the beginning. If you go back in history, I look at Trump as being like the second coming of King Henry VIII. Because I mean, in the 16th, 15th, 14th, 15th, 16th century, everybody followed the Roman Catholic Church for the most part, right? 90% of Europe, if not more. I mean, there's obviously, Judaism and the Lutheran.
Yeah, because
and
there were the
different
Crusades and
dialects,
the
right?
Inquisition and
Yes,
all that.
Protestant versus Catholicism. But again, the only reason why Henry broke away from the Roman
Of
Catholic
course.
Church was so he could get married to his mistress and to become head of his own church. You want to talk about narcissistic and
Yeah.
being power and control. He tried to overthrow the Pope, which he did in his own way, and
Yeah.
then wound up executing his people that supported him for the long. That was one of the biggest turns in all of history, was the Church of England being created and pulling away from the Roman Catholic Church. And then again, like you're saying, getting away from that whole faith to get freedom in the US, pulling away from the Church of England, right? Which is Protestant, to have freedom to do your, and now it's this is history repeating itself.
There's a book. Let me see if I can find the name of it. Holy Blood, Holy Grail. Oh, yeah. Holy Blood, Holy Grail. Have you ever read it?
No.
Okay. You remember the Da Vinci Code?
Yes, great
Okay.
movie.
It's kind
Great
of
book.
like it's non-fictional. I think it's non-fiction. It
Hmm.
might be fiction that he no, because he's writes about the Bible. And it's like the precursor to the Da Vinci Code. It's like the
Hmm.
true lead up to the what made the Da
Oh,
Vinci Code.
very cool. Okay.
It's a really good book. There were times though where I read the same page like 5 times and I don't remember it. And there were times where I read like 20 pages going, "Oh my God, what's next? What's next?" So it goes up and down. It's not an easy read, but it's a really good read. And it talks about that whole separation of church and state and how with churches and all that they pick from the Bible too. They cherry pick
Hmm.
what they want to believe and what they don't want to believe and
Yep, like all
what
of
the
it.
Bible says, and then turning it all around, which I guess makes sense when you talk about religion and all the different denominations and how they want the Christian evangelical.
Hmm.
It's a totally different, um, what's the, translation of the
Hmm.
Bible.
Yeah, it's a
And
different
they pick
translation.
and choose out of what. Now, whether you believe the Bible or not is your choice, and it should remain your choice.
Yep. It should remain your choice. This is the thing that scares me. Any form of any radical religion. I've had clients that are Jehovah's Witnesses, and they tend to be the most oppressed, suppressed, abused people on the planet because their elders are so abusive and they'll be disfellowshipped in a heartbeat. The only way you can get divorced is if you commit adultery. You don't get to divorce if you're being abused. You don't get that. They don't. You'll be disfellowshipped if you divorce without adultery. And so I had a client who literally stayed married to a woman he didn't even live with until they
Because,
could catch her, or they could prove that she was the one that was the and or he could just go to a bar, have a one night stand, and he'd be able to get divorced, but then he'd be disfellowshipped from his church. It's just mind blowing. And now it's a small population of people,
yeah,
but any type of faith that is so going door to door, trying to convert the world and
proselytizing.
believing, and again, cherry picking, picking and choosing what they want, it's all about control. And I just, it again, so I'm not religious. I wasn't brought up that way, but I do. Jesus was a real person. He walked the planet and he was a good person. If you look at the basics of Christianity, I'm not talking about Catholicism or Judaism or Islamic or Muslim or any, I'm talking about was a good dude, do to those you'd want done to yourself, selfless, and spoke honestly and truthful and was a good man. Just be a good fucking person at the end of the day is what it really should be about.
Do you guys have, because I don't know what is going on out here. This is really scary. Well, I don't know what is going on out in the US
In
to
the
begin
universe.
with, but this
Hmm.
is another thing. There's been this proliferation of religious commercials. We have a Jesus Loves Us commercial, and then there's the Catholics Come Home commercial to get Catholics back to their parishes. It's weird.
No, we don't have
I
that.
mean, as far as religion goes, do you? Do you?
No.
It's
Yeah,
weird.
exactly.
Religion
No
is a
one,
very personal thing, in my
it is.
opinion.
It
I'm more
is.
spiritual than religious. Yes,
Hmm.
I'm Jewish, but I even talked to my rabbi. I'm more spiritual
Hmm.
than
Well,
religious.
religion is the spirituality. It's your
Yeah.
spiritual thinking. Okay, so here's a good example of how Canada's very different than those in the US. So my other business, other than being a therapist, I part of a network marketing business that I've done for since 2016, and obviously based in Utah, heavily Mormon. Okay. Uh, love the company because the founders and the CEOs of the company, when they get and they do their global presentations and they do their conventions and they speak, don't bring their faith into anything. It's business. This is a business. Not everybody has your views or shares your views. And they know that. It's a very smart strategic business move because they speak to globally everybody. And then everybody feels comfortable and everybody's good. And then they can, and I really respect them for that. Really respect them for that. Because had they started preaching about God or Jesus, I'm out of there.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not appropriate. It has nothing to do with your business and what you're doing, and not everybody shares that faith. So when we launched in Canada back in 2016, it was in Toronto, and I flew back with my daughter and my sister. They were getting a lot of their advocates that did really well with the company that were US founders and to speak and kind of share their story and do their thing because it's all motivational speaking and it was great. And there's this guy named Kyle and he gets up on stage. And all of a sudden it's like I was an altar boy, Jesus, and he just loves me and he loves you. And I'm just like, and we're all sitting there going, ew, this feels really yucky. Because honestly, it's like this is not, we don't, what are you doing? Your
This is
faith
not church.
shouldn't have,
We're
this
not
isn't
in church
church.
right now.
This isn't church. And it has nothing to do with building a business, essential oils and a wellness company. Like I'm just sitting here going, oh my God. And everybody got the ick. Everybody in the audience got the ick. We're like, oh. And I remember talking to a friend of mine that she's the one that got me into it. And I just says, what was that guy like? Talk about the first thing you can do to turn everybody off. And she goes, yeah, he didn't get the memo that we don't talk about Jesus in Canada. We don't talk
Like
about God.
Bruno. We don't talk about Bruno.
We don't talk about Bruno. We don't talk
We
about
don't
God.
talk
We
about
just
Jesus.
don't. You keep your personal views of faith to yourself because you will turn people off. Again, it's like you're imposing all of your personal. No, it's not appropriate. But in the US, they do that. Like it's brutal. It's like you cross the border and people have love Jesus on their front yard. And you're like, oh,
If you look at
do not have that in
profiles on
Canada.
social media, it'll say Jesus, loves Jesus, all for Jesus. And good, great, fine. Keep it over there. It's not
Keep it
all
over
about us.
there.
And
It's not
if you
appropriate.
ever see, if you look up, because I'm sure they're on YouTube, the Jesus Loves Us commercials and billboards and shit like that. It's funny though, because I watch those commercials. You could tell which ones they are. And I'm like, this is so not the Republican Party of Christianity. It's all about Jesus wanting everyone to come together, not fight, wants the poor, the hungry, the migrants, all to be together,
Mhm.
which is the exact opposite of the Republican.
As a Republican, because again, it's corrupt. Exactly. You're taking people who are
However,
narcissists and who are mentally not stable and want to be in power and control and using faith to manipulate people and
yeah.
to coerce and corrupt them and
Here's
coerce them.
what is the golden rule? Do unto others as you would have done unto yourself, and love thy
100%.
neighbor as thyself.
Hmm.
Love
You
thy
know
neighbor
what?
as thyself. Okay,
Yeah.
here's the thing. This is what it's become. I said this back in the 90s, but I truly mean this now. Love thy neighbor as thyself, unless thy neighbor is different than thyself. Then try to change thy neighbor to be more like thyself. And if thy neighbor does not want to change to be like thyself, fuck thy neighbor.
Wow. Isn't that powerful?
It's
That's
true though.
true. It's beyond true again. And what is it? Because people can't accept and radically accept that people can feel and think and do as they please when it comes to spirituality and faith and living there. As long as you're following the law, you're not out there hurting other people. You're not out there doing immoral things that you
Yeah.
know are immoral and not good and are harming other people. You fucking do you.
I tell my clients, and I tell my clients that you're probably going to get sick of me telling you this, but as long as it's not illegal, immoral, not biblical, immoral, illegal, immoral, unethical, or harm someone. And if you
Mm-hmm.
find out that you harm someone and you don't stop, now
Mm-hmm.
you know that you knowingly harm someone.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you're not knowingly harming someone, be your true and genuine you.
Mm-hmm.
Why
Yep.
not? We have so many mental health problems
Hmm.
created by religion. To be honest,
Big
how many
time.
gay, lesbian,
Yeah.
transgender youth know that their religion
Hmm.
doesn't love them?
Yep.
They're what are they told? They're going to go to hell. When my husband was not Jewish, but he didn't care. I can say this. I did a typical Jewish move though. My husband was gonna convert, and I told my husband why it costs money. Why? Just do
Oh, Jody,
everything.
you're so funny.
Typical
Oh,
Jewish, but I can say this. But
yeah, of course you can.
why would we spend money when it's in here and in here? I don't care if you have a piece of paper. We had a
No.
Jewish wedding. We celebrated the Jewish holidays because he said, I don't do any of that. So I don't
Hmm.
care, if you want to do it. So Jewish wedding, Jewish holidays, he had a Jewish funeral.
Yeah.
What was my point about this though? Oh, I forget. I told you I lost my train of thought about my husband not being Jewish.
Well, you weren't forcing, like he was happy to convert, but you didn't need
I didn't want
uh
to spend the money because I'm cheap. I'm frugal. I'm frugal. I'm frugal. But
okay.
it's like I don't honestly, it'll hit me later tonight probably or whatever what I was trying to say about that. But the thing is I don't my husband my excuse me, my son and I have talked about this. I said if you have my husband didn't really celebrate Christmas. He didn't care. He was a
Yeah.
guy. He was a bachelor. He lived with other guys. I'm like, "Did you have Christmas trees?" He's like, "Sometimes yes, sometimes no." And I said, "Cuz I personally cannot have
Hmm.
a Christmas tree. I
Right.
never grew up with one. I'm Jewish.
Yeah,
I
of
just
course.
can't
That's
have one."
fine.
And he
Right.
said, "That's fine." Then years later, he's like, I think I want one. And I was like, well, shit. And I said, okay, we can get those little live ones because
Hmm.
I told him, I said, you're going to have to clean up the mess. And he's like, oh, no,
Hmm.
forget it. Never mind. But I told my son, I said, because he asked me if someone's not Jewish, I said, go for it. I don't care.
I
How,
think maybe that was your point you were trying to make, is that even though you are a devoted
yeah,
Jew person, even your husband didn't need to do that. He chose
no,
to because he didn't really care either way, and he was happy to. But I don't think you would have ever forced him per se. It had
never.
he
And
just
I
been
told my
like,
son,
no.
you will have problems. This is where you're going to have problems. If you date someone who is very into Christianity and Christian,
Hmm.
you're going to have some problems. You're going to have to
Yeah,
make a decision. I'm
yeah.
not going to tell you what to do. Like his dad is not Christian. His dad is a lapsed Catholic, as a matter of fact, went to Catholic school, wants nothing to do with it.
Hmm.
His sister is evangelical. His dad is Catholic. My son goes over to their houses, celebrates Christmas, celebrates Easter, does all of that. But I said, if are you going to have a Christmas tree in your house if you date someone? If you are with
Hmm.
someone, these are things you have to decide. Are you going to raise your child Jewish? I mean, you are technically when your mom is Jewish, you're Jewish.
Hmm.
Why my son had a bar mitzvah, though, I will tell you. He went to his aunt's house, and I had another friend at the time who was evangelical way back when, like 7 years old. And he comes home one day and we're talking about something, and he goes, oh, thank you, Jesus. And I'm like, we don't say that. Not in our house. We don't thank Jesus because
Hmm.
Jesus was just a normal person. And he's
Hmm.
like, oh. I'm like, okay, thought nothing of it. Like another year went by and he went to their house again and we're sitting and doing something and he goes, oh, thank you, Jesus Christ. And I'm like, okay, we got to get some Judaism into you. We got to get some of mom's religion because
Hmm.
you're getting a little too much of the other side. So I sent him to temple and stuff. But it's like, again, if he chooses as he gets older,
Yeah.
my brother's not very religious. My
Yeah.
nephew's not very, it's like, it's fine.
Hmm.
It's,
Yeah.
I guess my point is also, it is a choice.
It is a choice. Yeah, it is a choice. I mean, I didn't grow up in an organized religion, and so it's a lot different for me. But if my kids get to the point where they somehow meet somebody or they feel that it's their path, then 120% I would support them.
Yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
just know it's going to be different. You're going to have to
Hmm.
discuss it. You can't not discuss it.
Hmm. Well, it's a value system within your life. It's a huge one, right? Like that's one of your core values. is
Yeah,
your
well, even if
spirituality and your
you
faith.
met someone right now, Brie, that was very heavy into whatever religion they're in,
Mm-hmm.
whatever religion, you'd have to think about it. You'd have to make a
Mm-hmm.
decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would. Oh,
May or
100%.
may not. And if you don't want to be with that person, that is still your choice.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Because again,
Yeah.
not all of us want to be. I'm not very
Yeah.
religious. I'm more, again, more spiritual.
It's more spiritual. Yeah.
I met a guy one time when I was like 18, 19, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I have to go to Shul, which is temple, but it's more Jewish sounding." He goes, "Yeah, I go to Shul and I go to my sister. Nope, too Jewish. I can't."
Right. Okay. So there you go. Right. It was almost too much for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
any religion,
Yeah. Yeah. No, because I'm so not, I don't mind being with a person that has their basic beliefs, but not,
I'd be
we just
into
wouldn't
it. Yeah.
jive because I'd be too different, right? Like I
Yeah.
don't, my life isn't dictated by a faith. So, and I shouldn't use the word dictated, but I just don't, and I can respect everybody. Like I said, I have a ton of friends that are Mormon because of my
Oh, yeah.
past business, and they're gr amazing, wonderful people. And we don't talk about God and we don't talk about Jesus, and they keep it all up private,
You
right?
said the right word though when you said dictated,
Mhm.
because that's what they want to do in the
I
United
know.
States is
I know.
dictate
But
your
that's
life
again, people that
based on
can't
religious
think, they're
beliefs.
not open-minded enough, right? So they're so close-minded and they refuse to see what they don't want to see. And so when it comes to being open-minded to different belief systems, they aren't. It's
No.
just one or nothing. And they're just so fixed. They have a fixed mindset, not a growth mindset. And I just don't, like anything, you just don't jive well with people like that, right? As therapists, we have to remain open-minded.
And
So that's the job.
every religion, if I'm not mistaken, and I will say this, I don't like to use absolutes, but every religion is interpreted differently by every member of that religion.
Of course it is. Of
Like
course it
I
is.
knew this guy who he would come into work all the time with so and so translates whatever book of the Bible. So and so
Mhm.
translates whatever book of the Bible. And he'd sit and read them. And I'm like, why don't you translate your version of what you're reading? Why are you
Mhm.
reading it and then listening to someone else who's telling you what it means? Shouldn't
Mhm.
it be you and what it means to you?
Mhm.
Just,
It was just once upon a time, it was just a social construct because we didn't have laws and we didn't have anything. And the Bible was created so that society wasn't running amok in chaos. And if people for rules to abide by, just like we abide by laws now, that's what the Bible, and that's really where there was a belief system that people, and not to mention too, when you really think about it, and this was some philosophy stuff I got way back when, where from a philosophical perspective, it's a story because people can't not know where we come from. It's too scary.
yeah.
When you think about the world and our planet existing in a universe that has no end, that terrifies people. So we need to have an understanding of what existed prior to us and that there was something that existed because if we just came from nothing, people can't wrap their heads around that.
And that there's
So
something out there that guides us and
that
determines
guides us.
our,
And guides us creates safety. Safety creates a forum to follow and create social construct where everybody can abide by and that you don't have chaos. But again, that's basically, if you look biblically, you go way back in time, it's just like you do, like this is what you need to follow. And people needed that because they need to
Isn't
have something.
there something in the Bible that says about not worshiping false idols, false gods, all of that stuff?
Mhm. Yep,
So if
120%.
we're so into the Bible, what
But
is
then you look at
wrong?
culturally and other cultures, if you look at anybody from Scandinavia, right? They were pagan. And so they believed in gods. They
Yeah,
didn't
but
have a god, they
what
believed in
is
gods.
Trump? If you are worshiping a false god, a false idol, what
Do
is
you
Trump?
see
Because
how you
they
can
have Trump as
apply?
the fucking second
Yes.
coming.
Yes, exactly. Again, it's like where Seventh-day Adventists think the Pope is Satan
Oh,
because they
really?
don't believe that any, yeah, they do. They don't believe. See, I've studied different religions because I find them actually quite interesting.
Yeah, I took
But
history of religion, but I can't really
it's
remember.
hard. But Seven-day Adventists, and that I learned this when I was in Australia years ago, that they really believe the Pope is Satan because they don't believe that any faith could have a person be that godly and closest to God and they think and that Lucifer was the king of tricksters, and he was the one that, so it's basically the Pope is disguising Satan, like the Pope is Satan. That's what they believe, right? Because they just don't believe that any person should be that can put themselves in a position of being the liaison between our world and heaven and God. They don't believe that.
Do they believe in prophets? Because
Yeah,
isn't
they do.
that
They
what a
believe in
prophet
prophets. They
is?
believe in prophets, but again, in the 7 days that heaven and earth were created and whatever, and so the Seventh-day Adventists, that's the whole purpose. But it was so interesting when I went to a church service with her and how she just said, "Oh, Catholics," ooh, and I was like, "Oh, why?" And she just says, "Because the Pope is Satan." I'm like, "Huh? What?" But then she explained it to me, and I went, "Oh my God, that makes so much sense." Do you see how it's easy to believe?
Yeah.
All the different theories and biblical theory out there all speak the same language in just different ways and make sense. But when one's trying to pit another one against the other one because of the lack of trust and feeling like one has to be right versus another, where it's like get rid of the who is right, who is wrong, and just follow the good nature of what Christianity is really all
It's
about.
supposed to be about love and
Yes.
acceptance.
And not judgment and not judgment. So why does my Pentecostal friend have to wear turtlenecks? Because if her mother and her church mom friends see her, she's sinning because she's wearing a low cut top. That's not the teachings of Jesus or Christ.
Well, the
So
teaching of Jesus is not mass deportations. Migrants aren't allowed here. We don't want them tainting our blood,
again,
poisoning
it's
our
more white
blood.
supremacy hiding behind
That is
religion.
not religion. Yeah.
And in evangelical radicalism, because literally it's not what the Bible represents. If anything, if I were to be religious, I would belong to a non-denominational Christianity, which means that it's
Yeah.
just about Jesus being a good dude and everybody accepting everybody and don't judge anybody and just be a good person and be moral. Don't steal, don't lie, don't hurt other people. The end. The
When you
end.
think about, okay, there's what is it? Baskin Robbins. I don't know. Do you guys have Baskin Robbins out there? 52 flavors of ice cream or whatever. That was their big thing many years ago was
Yeah, in some places I think we
Baskin
do,
Robbins.
but it's not huge. Yeah.
Because we all have different tastes. We all like different things. And if you really want to think about religion, there are so many of them
Mhm,
because what did they spurn out of?
mhm.
Okay, you got Protestant and Catholicism because someone wanted a fucking divorce and to get
Mhm.
remarried.
Yep.
So we're going to change our interpretation of the Bible. Everything is a change. So not one
Mhm.
is the almighty correct being.
And everybody back in those days followed a form of faith because it's what they felt what kept them
Kept them
alive during
going.
such cruel and hard and desolate times. But King Henry VIII really truly believed he was not able to have a son because he married his brother's wife. He married Catherine of Aragon, who was married to his older brother Arthur. They never consummated their marriage. She was only 15 and he was 16 and he died of the flu. And then Henry was then forced to marry Catherine. And then they had many children, but she had many stillbirths, and she only had one live daughter that lived. And he believed that it says in the Bible that if you marry thy brother's wife, you will bear no sons. And he took that and really believed that that's what was happening. And so, therefore, when Anne came in and he took many mistresses and he was tempted by her and she played him like a fiddle because she was trying to gain she was political gain. Her family was pushing her up there and he became obsessed with her and so he wanted to be able to annul his first marriage in order to marry Anne so he could have a son to carry because he needed to have an heir to the throne. And a female doesn't hold the same. He needed to have a son. And he really truly believed that because he married his, and so she tried, never consummated the marriage. She was banished and she was stripped of her titles, but she wasn't killed. And it's just so archaic. But you could believe anything that was happening in his life attributed to their faith of doing
Yeah.
something that was a sin or not right. So, and that's when he really broke away. And the Pope hated Henry VIII. He was not happy
Oh
about what was.
no.
He tried to have Anne Boleyn executed so he couldn't annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. It's again, one of the biggest, hugest shifts in history when it comes to religious ridic or rhetoric. right?
It's really, again, I'm more spiritual than religious, and I don't
Mhm.
even like fanatics and radicalism in my own religion. Like I said, some it's too much. But the thing is, if you want to do you and you
Mhm.
want to believe what you want to believe and it doesn't harm anybody,
Mhm.
it's an internal, you don't have to be me. I'm
Mhm.
fine with it. That's how it should be. But
Mhm.
somehow, some way, it has become you need to think like I do.
Mhm.
And it's been like I had a client
Oh,
back in
it's
the
been like that from the
90s.
beginning of
Yeah.
time. It's
Who
just
was
knowing
shunned
that
by
your
her church.
society.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was shunned by her church because her husband cheated and she was getting a divorce, so she was shunned by her church. So we talked about it back then in the 90s, but it has become now with this new presidency, well, returning presidency, you must all believe like I do. Now,
That's scary.
I may not believe this because I held my Bible upside down to prove what a good I don't know what religion I'm supposed to be with this Bible here, but because I don't think he has a clue. But
No,
you shove
Trump's
it
not
down
religious.
people's throats that you want everybody to believe like you do. I'm sorry, if you really think about religion, most religions, there is one higher power.
Hmm.
It's how you get to that higher power that's different
Hmm.
in each religion.
Hmm.
You have Jesus is the Son of God, and you go like I told someone, we don't use a middleman in Judaism. We go straight to God. I guess in Christianity, you have Jesus who,
Jesus. Yeah. And in Catholicism, it's Virgin Mary, the Virgin Mary they pray to all the time.
so there's different, but there's one God. Like even in Islam, there's Allah.
Hmm.
In the Mormon church, isn't there one God?
Yeah,
It's
it's
so
one. Yeah.
most religions think of one God. So it's all
Hmm.
how we get to that one God that's different. That's become such honestly a bad thing. I don't care how you pray. When you try to push it on me, oh, this is what I was saying. Sorry. Now I remember going back to my husband that so my husband wasn't Jewish. When he died, we had a Jewish funeral. And I have a friend who is born again. Now, born again and evangelical aren't exactly the same thing because I researched it because that's what I do is research when I'm not sure of something, which
Hmm.
I imagine you do as well. But they said like evangelical encompasses born again, but born agains aren't always evangelical. So
Okay.
my friend was born again and he did not like when I said this. He said to me, "Oh, you're not going to end up with your husband when you die. You're going to a different place because you're the wrong religion." And I'm like, "Excuse me?
Yeah,
Are
Jehovah's
you
Witnesses think the same thing.
serious?"
Hmm.
And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, "You don't even know. I bet you don't even know the Ten Commandments." I'm like, "Dude, I wore a Ten Commandments bracelet every day when I was little. I think I still have it in my closet." I'm like, "You mean the Ten Commandments of the Old Testament? Seriously, dude? What the hell? My husband just died and you're telling me this?" I said,
Well,
"Oh,
it's also just, it's not his place. Like the guy has no boundaries. And so,
no." And he got really mad because I did this on purpose and I don't want to offend anybody that's out there, but I'll tell you what I said to him. I said, "Oh, so you're born again, meaning you fucked it up the first time."
yeah, totally.
Yeah, he got very offended and hung up the phone
I'm
and it's
sure he
like,
did.
why is that offensive to you? But telling me that I'm not, I'm gonna
But
basically go to
but
hell?
again, it's that narcissistic
Yeah.
personality type because again, they can't see anybody else's perspective but their
No.
own. And you can if you can they'll offend you'll offend them all day long, but they can offend anybody they want, right? It
Yeah.
just it's you're dealing with a person that there's no logic. But when it comes down to this whole thing with the states and what's happening within that country, why do you think JD Vance is the vice president? Trump's not fucking religious. He doesn't have a Christian fucking bone in his body. He wasn't brought up Christian. He
No.
doesn't believe in any of that shit. It's all talk. He's got JD Vance to do that job.
Which surprisingly, you haven't heard a single thing about JD Vance. You have not heard from him since the election, which
No.
the only reason I find that interesting is because they were all about how Kamala didn't do anything as vice president.
Hmm.
Kamala didn't do anything. She had 4 years to do all the shit she's talking about, and she never did it. So now that he's vice president elect,
Hmm.
Very
Yeah, I
quiet.
know they're all pretty quiet right now, but this is the scary part about mixing church and state because Vance is so religious and Trump isn't, but he's got Vance to be able to back him up to speak to all of the fanatic radicalists out there.
And it's
So
so sad because if you are seriously a love thy neighbor as thyself person,
you wouldn't be doing
we
what you're
would
doing.
honestly be in a better place.
Hmm.
Much better place. If you were practicing supposedly true Christianity.
Hmm. So that's what we should really label this podcast as, I think, as that we've talked about the faith component of this more than
Mhm.
anything, and that how this plays a role as being a negative when you're mixing it politically, and that the agenda is, again, when you're pushing radicalism in spirituality and in faith and in religion, it does not end well. It does not end well.
And they do,
And
right?
again, so no, that's okay, Joe, sorry. To the rest of the world, other than I should say the Middle East and again the radicalism within the Muslim faith, which is so incredibly sad, nobody else agrees with that. The
Look
rest of
what's
the world is
happening
very
too.
liberal in their thinking, and they don't like it when you are pushing your faith on people.
What
You
is
are going
the, let
to
me
turn
see
people
something. What
off.
is the definition? The actual, I know what it is, but I want to know what the actual definition is. Because that's another thing I do is like, I know what it is, but what is the
What's
like
that? What are we talking about?
the
Radicalism?
definition of radical is relating to or affecting the fundamental nature of something far-reaching or thorough, a
It's an
radical
extreme.
overhaul, or advocating based on thorough or complete political or social change,
Yeah.
representing or supporting a supreme or progressive section of political party. Now,
Yeah.
look what's happening in Syria.
I know.
Radicalism
All of it.
and not radicalism. And who is the one, honestly, that starts things? The radicals.
It's
The
always the
radicals.
radical.
Yeah.
I watched a woman speak. It was a Muslim woman, and she lives in the U.S. And after everything that was happening with Hamas and with what was going on with the whole shit show, was like what people are missing is just that that's not true Muslim. That's a radicalist
Radical,
who
yes.
in Muhammad who has taken. Again, you're taking the most sociopathic, Machiavellianism, narcissistic piece of shit and making and bringing religion into it, and that everybody's following that. That's not the true nature um, of the Quran. And
And yeah,
I have Muslim clients, and it's not. It's actually a beautiful faith. Just like Judaism is a beautiful faith, just like Christianity is a beautiful.
they can't be
It's all about being good.
yeah,
And again, but the radical parts is where they manipulate and they are control, 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 control. It is, again, the basis of all war in the world. It comes down to people's
radical.
radical thinking, and not an extremist in anything is a bad thing. And so, again, we're going back in time. Okay. So people who are again, we just have to find a balance. It's not all or nothing. It can't be all or nothing, right? We have to find a place to find happy ground in the middle where you're not too far left and you're not too far right. And it is just accepting other people and their beliefs, but not imposing and pushing. So I know we probably got to wrap up because we're over time, but honestly, folks, for those out there, please comment and let us know your thoughts about the radicalism versus the having a faith and having a spiritual belief
Believe.
system.
Yeah.
And again, and not the need to push it on other people. You do you. But again, this is not going to end well for the US. And we don't know what's going to happen in the next 4 years, other than women are going to continue to die and not get the health care that they need because of Roe v. Wade. And whether this is going to become a national ban on abortion versus state bans on abortion. In Canada, again, we have an election coming up next year. Our prime minister needs to go. He's done a lot of shitty crap in our country, and he's put us in so much debt, and our economy is out of control. But it's sort of a global thing at the same time. Um, but it's just scary. You cannot mix faith and spirituality and political realm. It is terrifying. And when it's happened, nothing good comes of it. We wind up in a world crisis.
It's kind of ironically sad. It's kind of ironic that we look at fundamental radical Islam
Mhm.
in a really bad light.
Mhm.
We don't look at fundamental Christian
Radical,
evangelical.
evangelical, but it's the same thing. It's
Yep.
all the molestation, the sexual abuse, it just fucking
Domestic violence.
insanity, the domestic violence, the control of women, the oppression of women. It's all still there. It's no different than the Middle East
No.
and Muhammad and what he was preaching. And I have a client who's taught me a lot about the Quran and it is such a beautiful faith when it's balanced. And men don't disrespect their wives and don't control or manipulate her. And it's not about that. You're taking one person who's turned the Muslim faith into something that it's not supposed to be, just like evangelical Christianity, right?
Well, look at Iran in the 70s. And
Mhm.
the women look like women, dressing,
Iran, yeah,
running
in the
around.
70s. I know. Well,
Now
their
they're,
political leader now, everything is a hijab. They're not allowed to not
yeah.
wear it again. It's all about the suppression and oppression of women because these weak men are threatened. They're just
And
threatened by
it's
women.
sadly, you look at almost every religion, even Judaism, women
I
are still
know.
class. But
It's again men feeling somehow threatened. Think about the biological nature of women, okay? And the biological nature of men. Paleolithic times, men hunter-gatherers, stronger, genetically stronger sex, physiologically stronger because they're supposed to be in
yeah,
order to hunt and gather to feed your family. Women are to bear children and to nurture.
yeah.
So women are of nurturing status. Why are men threatened by women? Why?
Women, because men are hunter-gatherers.
Yes.
I don't know if this is the reason why. This is my hypothesis. Men are more unilateral in their
Hmm.
brain, unihemisphere.
Hmm.
Women are more cross the corpus callosum,
Well,
which is
that's
the
right.
side
But it's left
brain,
to right, right to left,
because
faces front to back.
we are multitasker, taking care of, feeding the family. Single men, dads probably have a little more cross,
Hmm.
but men in general are more unilateral
So
because
they're threatened by the fact that we can multitask and do more at
and
once.
think we're more, and this has been showed, research has shown this, we are deeper
Mhm. We are.
than
Well,
men. We
emotionally,
are
of course we are.
emotional. We are whatever because we have the female hormones.
Well,
Men
because
are more
women live in the
fixed.
limbic system. Our limbic
Yeah,
system is where we communicate. Our emotions are where we live. Men don't. But why is that a threat to men? Why?
because men are all about testosterone and power and being the superior beings.
Yes,
Women
I know,
are more
but
mental
how is that a threat to men though?
because
Why?
women are more mental. Women are conniving and cunning, and we are correct. We think things through. We see things from a lot more vantage point. Not all men, not all women, but women have to because
From
we
a
have
biological
things.
standpoint. So this is what,
So
because
I'm sorry, so men are like, if they can look at 18 different things, we can only look at eight.
it's a threat.
They may
That's
tell
the
us,
threat.
yeah,
That's the threat. It's that our ability to communicate, which poses a threat to men.
yeah.
So it's again, somehow that becomes a weakness for men. Men can't be weak and they can't wrap their head around that. So, but if they could just look at it as that they have different strengths and we have different strengths and it's supposed to work together, not against one another.
Yeah.
And if that could be where people could figure this out and men could figure this out, and the radicalists of the world, even though they're mentally ill, because all of them are, if we could just somehow get rid of, then we wouldn't have these issues.
If you look at so many things throughout history,
Mm,
like really look at things throughout history, with men, I think it's testosterone based. Everything is a pissing contest.
I
Look
know.
at our
Mm,
obelisks.
mm,
Everything is bigger, higher,
mhm,
longer, faster.
mhm,
Power, power, power. Not necessarily mental ability,
mhm,
but the physical attributes.
I know.
Whereas
Yep.
women, it's the mental attributes. So that
Mhm,
is more threatening.
mhm,
Just like with Trump, going full circle, Trump
mhm,
getting rid of the Department of Education. If we can keep people dumb,
mhm. Well,
they
that's
can't
like anything.
think.
That's like even in religion. Take away all their abilities and all of their resources to learn, and you've got control.
Yeah.
You
But
don't
that's
want
why
women being
women
smart. You
are
don't want women
threatening,
learning. I know.
as we think. We
Mhm.
over fucking think.
I know, but again, as nurturers, We could take care of you in the way that you really
Yeah.
need to be taken care of, but yet somehow you find us threatening. If they could just change their mindset, obviously. But it's just, oh, it's just so, we have the answers, but people will not believe what they don't want to believe. They will refuse to believe what is right in front of them.
Literally, because if you talk to someone, you can find this anywhere, decked head to toe in Trump shit, saying, "Oh my God, those gay people want to fly a flag." You're dressed head to toe in fucking Trump.
I
And
know the
you're upset about a
hypocrisy, and they
gay
don't even
person
see it.
flying a pride flag.
Yeah.
You don't have
And
a
the
mirror.
whole world, again, is laughing at you. Everybody laughs at you because you are dumb, and yet you don't care. They like, as a nation, if you're so patriotic, do you know that you are the laughing stock of the entire globe?
You wore a fucking maxi pad on your ear because he supposedly got, I mean, come
I
on.
can't. I can't. Anyways, on that note, guys.
So, yes, on that note, like, subscribe, follow, comment.
Mhm.
Please, politely. Would
Mhm.
love civil discourse. I can't imagine. It'd be nice if everybody agreed with us, but I can't
Mhm.
imagine everybody watching this podcast is like, yes. There's probably some people going, oh, bitch. Hell no.
Well, again,
But
but why are you getting defensive? Again,
yes,
just
that's what
inviting
I'm
a
saying.
conversation
Would
just to see
love a
what's
comment.
your, again, and all of it and the threats, it's because of the fear.
Yeah. What are you
So just
so afraid of?
explain. Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys. Take
Happy
care.
Sunday. Okay. Bye.